What's going on, everybody? I am back to break down this 12-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Excited to get into it. Going to be giving you guys the top plays to get you in that green cash line tonight. As always, if you enjoy the content, would be greatly appreciated if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. And if you are going to be very serious about MLB DFS, I do offer premium content packages. Would highly recommend you check them out. Patreon.com/KJK_DFS. That's the link below in the description. You're going to get access to all of my tools, my Discord, exclusive live streams, as well if you join the MLB All-Star package. And if you do props, I do cover props as well over here. Super Draft, PrizePicks, all the above. So check that out if you're interested. And if you haven't checked out Super Draft, check them out. They're the sponsor of the program. They do have player props and DFS contests. Go ahead and use promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match on your first $25 deposit today. Again, that is code KJK DFS. Go to lock that in, get that free money offer. Start winning some money over there on Super Draft. I've been doing player props videos on that. They also do have DFS if you're into that as well, though. There's a multiplier format over there rather than salary. So if you're interested in checking them out, check them out. Thank you to them for being the sponsor of the program. And let's talk about the slate today, guys. So we'll talk about pitching first, as always, and then we'll get into bats on the latter half of the video. And as always, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by K-rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. Figure out the top pitchers that we're going to play. And as always, don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my home run call of the day. So the top guy on the slate today is going to be Carlos Rodon. He comes in with a 33.4% K rate overall with a 14.5% swinging strike rate, 26.2% hard contact rate with a 33.7% K rate against righties and a 32.3% K rate against lefties. Elite K stuff, does a great job eliminating hard contact. He gets to pitch in one of the best pitching environments in baseball tonight in San Francisco, and he's a massive 219 favorite. So Carlos Rodon, right off the bat, going to be one of the top pitchers on a slate where we do not have a shortage of pitching options, I will say, though. So definitely, a good option here. That's, the first pitcher you could be looking to on the slate, but it doesn't stop there. We have Jeffrey Springs taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. He's been fantastic with a 32% K rate overall, 34.7% K rate against righties, and a 26.2% K rate against lefties. Only issue for him really was leash. Now he's stretched out. The problem is he doesn't get the best matchup taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. They're especially really good against left-handed pitching. It's in the Trop, which is a great pitching environment overall, though, in Tampa, I will say. And he is finally stretched out. And then lastly, when you're looking at his salary, as far as where these sites have him priced, he's 6'3" over here on DraftKings. He's been right around 80 pitches, getting 7 to 6 strikeouts per game. He's gave up 200 runs the last 2 times out, but he's a good salary relief option. He's 6'3" on DraftKings as far as FanDuel is concerned. Let's see where they have Springs at. He's up to 8.7, so 8.7 is a little bit pricey for my liking on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, he's a nice cheap salary. So once again, DraftKings kind of giving you a nice cheap option at the pitching position. If you wanted to pay up and then pay down, if you want to go with some elite bats, he's probably a good option to be going to tonight. Michael Kopech taking on the LA Dodgers. He's a really good pitcher overall. The problem is he has to take on the LA Dodgers. He does have a 38.9% K rate overall against lefties with a 26.2% K rate against righties. Does a good job of limiting hard contact. His problem is he does have a bit of a walk issue. Can be a little bit inefficient with his pitches. He does come in as a underdog in this game as well at plus 110. It's just tough to really want to promote any pitcher against the Dodgers for me. I mean, especially on a slate where we have some other options that are really good matchups. The only thing I could possibly think of, the only reason I would go to him is just to have him really low into the tournament. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't really make sense when we can just go down to some other guys and some really good matchups, such as a Tariq Skubal taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, Kyle Wright taking on the Oakland Athletics. Those would be the next 2 guys I'm going to. We do have Yu Darvish taking on the New York Mets, but similar to what we just discussed with Kopech, I don't really feel the need to target the New York Mets other than ownership, when we have such other great spots. So for me, Darvish, I'm really not all that interested on this slate. I would much rather go to a Tariq Skubal taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Fantastic matchup. The Pirates have been bad all year. They really don't have a good lineup. He comes in as a 123 favorite. He does have good stuff across the board as well. Really, the only thing is the salary and the other guys around him. Do you go with Tariq Skubal or do you go with Kyle Wright or Alek Manoah? That's kind of your question. I mean, I think Kyle Wright's the top option out of those 3 with how big of a favorite he is, and he gets to take on the Oakland Athletics. So I lean going Kyle Wright for that reason, but maybe Tariq Skubal has some lower ownership for that reason. Everyone flocks to Kyle Wright, and Skubal is definitely a good option. I mean, both these guys certainly going to be top priorities on the slate, but I think Kyle Wright could be my top option. Massive favorite, 26.2% K rate overall. Great hard contact stuff. Great matchup take on the Oakland Athletics. He features a 30.1% K rate to righties and a 22.3% K rate to lefties. And like I said, massive favorite. You know, we want our pitchers to get the win in DFS. We want him to go as deep into the ballgame and rack up as many strikeouts as he can. All those things apply when we're talking about the Oakland Athletics for a matchup. So Kyle Wright, phenomenal play. We have Justin Verlander and Alek Manoah, both going to be great plays as well. Alek Manoah and Justin Verlander are the next kind of two guys I'm going to be looking to. Great in the hard contact category, both around a 25 to 26% K rate. Both have a 25+% K rate to both sides of the plate as far as righties, lefties. Both do a pretty good job of limiting hard contact to both of those sides. And both are heavy favorites. So once again, tons of pitching options. Verlander is a 258 favorite. Manoah is a 223 favorite. And then you're looking at the salaries. I mean, all these guys are pretty packed tight for salaries as well. Like if I need the extra 200 to get up to a bat that I really like, and I can't quite fit in Rodon, and I have to drop down to Kyle Wright, that's really not going to bother me. I like all these options up here today. So for me, it's just packing a couple of these options in. I mean, I think Kyle Wright's, like I said, I really like the Oakland matchup for him. I just think he's going to be a top priority for that reason. Skubal has a great matchup against Pittsburgh. I mean, Verlander probably has the worst matchup against Seattle. So you can make an argument for fading him. I still think he pitches a really good game here. It's just a matter of, is it worth paying up the extra, couple $100 for him when all these other options are probably going to score pretty big fantasy scores tonight as well. For me, like I said, I'd be willing to just play these options, any of these options, and make sure that I really like my bats, and I'll be happy. And then once we get down past them, I really don't think there's anything too interesting. I mean, we talked about the cheap options and Springs on DraftKings. He's certainly going to be looking good on FanDuel as far as my cheap options concerned. Not too sure who that's going to be yet until I do a deeper dive. Garrett Whitlock taking on the LA Angels, a team that strikes out a lot. He's only 7K. I think he could be an interesting option possibly. He doesn't have the longest of leashes, but he's cheap. He gets a great strikeout matchup. He does have some great strikeout stuff. Looking at Whitlock's numbers, he's a 26.1% K rate overall, so I think he could be a pretty interesting salary relief option on FanDuel if you had to go there. But outside of that, mainly looking to stick with these main guns, I would say. I mean, on FanDuel, you only get one pitcher. You kind of got to nail it, so I would say it doesn't really make too much sense to be going with anyone outside of the guys we talked about with how large of a ceiling they have. And then as far as DraftKings is concerned, I mean, you could go down to Springs. We talked about him as being a salary relief option, but these guys are all just really, really good pitching options, man. So for me, I think I'm going to try to stay with those guys that we just discussed, if at all possible. Well, let's go ahead and switch over to bats. As always, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by SIERA. Skill on active ERA. It's a good way of determining how good a pitcher's been so far, how good he's expected to be in the future, and the worst on the slate is going to be Dakota Hudson. He has a 4.89 SIERA. Not terrible hard contact stuff, actually. Only a 371 slugging to righties, a 283 slugging to lefties, but he does have a pretty bad walk issue. He doesn't strike anyone out. The ball is put in play early and often, so if you want to stack up the Rays, he does have the worst SIERA on the slate. That does speak volumes, but, I mean, I do think that there's other more ideal options. The Cardinals have a pretty good bullpen. It's in Tampa. It's really not the best hitting environment. Maybe a low-owned stack you could certainly be looking to, but I do think that, like I said, there's some better options. Reed Detmer's taking on the Boston Red Sox. He has some bad fly ball issues. Gives up quite a bit of hard contact to right-handed hitting specifically. Only a 17.6% K rating against those righties with a 421 slugging given up, but he also gives up a 475 slugging to lefties. So it's not like he's immune to giving up hard contact to the left-handed side of the plate as well. And he has to take on the Boston Red Sox bats tonight. I don't know if there's a Vegas total released yet on this one. Let's just refresh it just in case there is, but nope. Okay, so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Red Sox are definitely a good stack. They're on the road. They're in LA. They get the guaranteed top of the ninth at bat. Detmers, we just talked about, hard contact issues against both sides. They have some guys that match left-handed pitching, and JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Trevor Story, Bobby Dahlback, Christian Arroyo, Christian Vasquez at the bottom, all hit lefties pretty well for, their skill level. Enrique Hernandez at the top of the lineup. And then we talked about you could get maybe a low-owned Rafael Devers, lefty on lefty, because people really don't like to play lefty on lefty bats. And Detmers has struggled against lefties as well. So Red Sox certainly going to be a good place to be looking tonight. You got Brad Keller taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. He has bad hard contact stuff. Typically, he has been pretty good in the ground ball, fly ball category. It's starting to look like he's getting worse and worse, though. Like, he's a guy that I typically say, like, I don't like to stack too much against because the ground ball, fly ball stuff has been pretty good. But I don't think I'm sticking with that story. The more sample size we're getting, he gives up a 418 slugging to righties and a 451 slugging to lefties. I mean, he just doesn't strike anyone out. The Toronto Blue Jays have a really good offense with lots of power. They're on the road in Kansas City. They have a 5.13 implied run total. You can be stacking up these bats for sure. As far as I'm concerned, 1 through 9, the Kansas City Royals bullpen is not good as well. So anytime there's a pitcher that's not so good and he's backed up by the third worst bullpen in baseball, I definitely will have interest in the stack. So the Blue Jays is going to be viable. It's just a matter of how popular they are, and with it being such a large slate, I do think there's going to be some other options we can be pivoting to. So I think Bo Bichette had to leave that game too. I'm not quite sure the reasoning. I saw that he got pinch hit for it at the end of the game. I wasn't watching it live, so I don't know if that was an injury or just like matchup. I tend to think they wouldn't pinch hit for Bo Bichette no matter what, unless it was. I mean, I guess they were up big in that game, so maybe it was just to get him out of the game to avoid injuries type of thing too. But just something I would have to look that up. I just saw that he got pinch hit for. I think he's fine, but I'll have to look into that. Cole Irvin taking on the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are certainly going to look like one of the top offenses. He just really struggles against, right-handed slugging, left-handed slugging across the board. He gives up a 415 slugging to righties, a 417 slugging to lefties. The Braves have a bunch of guys that can match left-handed pitching, and they have a massive implied run total right now. Looking at it, it's a 5.27 implied run total. It's 82 degrees in Atlanta with 6-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left center. So pretty much everything you could ask for when it comes to wanting to target power right-handed bats. And then lastly, when you're looking at the ISO for the Atlanta Braves against left-handed pitching, they are the #1 team in the league in ISO versus lefties, which means they got a ton of power. Definitely going to be one of the top stacks, if not the top stack. Ronald Acuna, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. You can go lefty on lefty. Same thing we talked about with Devers. If people don't like playing lefty on lefty, so you can do that and get him lower owned. Ozzie, Ozuna, Darno, Duvall, Michael Harris would probably be my least favorite of the bunch, but he is really cheap if you need the salary relief. But I mean, Darno, Ozuna, and Duvall are all guys that can match lefties, and they're in the 6, 7, and 8 spots. So definitely a lineup you can stack up and down. And if you want to pay up for some pitching and you need the cheaper bats in the bottom half, great. If you have a little bit of extra salary to get up to an elite bat at the top, great. Regardless, great stack in the Atlanta Braves today, so could definitely be going there. Chris Flexen taking on the Houston Astros, another guy that's not good with a 455 slugging, get up to righties, a 387 slugging, get up to lefties. Really not good against either side of the plate, but he does struggle more so against righties, a little bit reverse splitsy. The Astros have a 5 implied total. And another great stack. 5+ implied run total. Tons of power throughout the heart of the order. Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Alvarez, obviously tons of power. He can always be a viable option. Kyle Tucker, great option that I think oftentimes gets slept on around the league, I should say. Really, really talented bat. Yulieski Gurriel, Jeremy Pena, Jason Castro, Jose Siri. I'd definitely be willing to go 1 through 9 there. Taking on Chris Flexen if you want to stack them up. Taijuan Walker taking on the San Diego Padres. He's a little bit less than great, but the San Diego Padres haven't been great against right-handed pitching, and they're in San Diego, which is less than ideal from a hitting environment. So for me, a little bit of limited interest in the Padres. Probably don't want to be going there. You got Keegan Thompson taking on the Baltimore Orioles. He's been pretty good, actually, for the most part, outside of the lefty splits. Really, for me, if I'm looking to target him, I want to just probably stack up some lefties, but the Orioles do typically roll out more righties than lefties. It's in Baltimore. There's 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left. With that wall being pushed back, it's less than ideal. I also prefer to target lefties in Baltimore now, so mainly for me, it's going to be Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, Adley Rutschman, Rougned Odor, those lefties. If you want to go with a 4 stack of those lefties, you could. I just think there's probably some better options. That's kind of a low-owned stack, but don't hate it. Taillon taking on the Twins. He's been really good, but he does struggle more so against lefties with the fly ball issues. He does give up 429 slugging to righties, which is worse than his lefty splits. But for me, if I'm looking to stack against Taillon tonight, which I think you could in Yankee Stadium, in Minnesota, which does play friendlier to left-handed bats as well. I'm looking to stack the lefties on the Twins. So, Luis Arias, Max Kepler, Jorge Polanco, Trevor Lenark, Nick Gordon. You can, of course, mix in the elite bats, Byron Buxton, Gary Sanchez. They have some power, so I'm not saying you have to skip over them, but it all starts with the lefties for me if I'm going against Taillon there. Yankees have a really good bullpen, though, so less than ideal, to stack against them with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th best bullpen in the league in xFIP, so it's possible. German Marquez has been terrible all year long. I think the San Francisco Giants could be possibly one of the sneakiest stacks in the slate. He gets up a 432 slugging to lefties, only an 18.6% K rate. They probably get a bunch of ownership just because of how bad he's been. But on top of it, the Colorado Rockies have the 2nd worst bullpen in the league. They've been terrible as well. think the Giants could have a big night tonight. They have a bunch of power. They have a 4.81 implied run total. Tommy LaStella, Mike Yastrzemski, Wilmer Flores, Jock Peterson, Brandon Crawford, LaGoria, Luis Gonzalez, Walton, and Bart. I'd be willing to go 1 through 9. For me, it's mainly 1 through 6. I would say that, you know, once we get down to the 7, 8, 9, I'm not too intrigued to stack this team up as much as some other teams. I mean, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here. We can take a look at the numbers on the season, but I think I mean, there's just not a lot of power at the bottom of the order. So for me, yeah, pretty much, you know, my initial read is exactly what, I mean, we're not seeing a lot of power numbers out of those bottom guys. So 1 through 6 mainly for me as far as San Francisco is concerned. I do think they're a pretty good stack. Like, they're in a not good hitting ballpark as far as Oracle Park's concerned, but sometimes you can bypass that when it comes to ownership, just the overall spot. I mean, Marquez has not been good. The Rockies bullpen hasn't been good. The Giants lineup has a lot of power towards the top of this lineup. Like, looking at my team hitting data sheet as far as the ISO against right-handed pitching for the Giants, they're kind of middle of the pack. I mean, they're the 11th best team in the league. With a 159 ISO, 405 slugging. I mean, they definitely have some power with guys like LaStella, Yastrzemski, Jock, Crawford, Longoria. They can hit it out of anywhere. So I know San Francisco isn't ideal, but maybe that lowers their ownership more than it should be. And I could see them having a big night tonight. So I do like the Giants bats for sure. In this scenario, Quintana taking on Detroit. He gives up a ton of hard contact to right-handed hitting, so you could go with some Detroit loaned right-handed bats. And you know, if there was ever a time for Detroit to be the lone stack and win it, this probably would be it. They do have quite a bit of righties here to stack up, and Javi Baez, Miguel Cabrera, Jonathan Scope, Spencer Torkelson. Like, that's a nice, pretty stack. Eric Kase traditionally mashes left-handed pitching as well. This is a rare spot where I would promote a Tiger stack, so you know it's possible for them to go off. So I haven't promoted them, and I don't know how long. So that's something to take note of. And then once we get down past them, I mean, things get pretty not great to target for the most part. Kyle Bradish is terrible against right-handed hitting, I will say, for the Chicago Cubs. The righties have to be in play. I mean, the guy gives up a 721 slugging to righties with a 44.4% hard contact rate. The Orioles ballpark, unfortunately, like I said, they pushed that wall way back, so that's a little bit less than ideal. But when someone's numbers are that bad, splits-wise, you got to take notice. So Christopher Morel has been really good since coming up. Wilson Contreras, Frank Schwindel, Patrick Wisdom, Nico Horner. Every single righty that cracks the lineup, you got to have interest. It's just that bad. Against lefties, he's been pretty good. Righties, he has been terrible. That is not good. Cole Sands hasn't been good, but we're only dealing with an 8 innings pitch sample size. But if you want to stack up the New York Yankees, we don't have an implied run total yet for them, I don't believe. Yeah, but something tells me they're going to be up there around the 5 mark. And tons of power. They got Stanton back. They got Josh Donaldson back. That's big. That's going to boost that lineup up. Josh Donaldson, very familiar with the Minnesota confines, so that's something that sometimes does help a guy. A little bit of a, you know, maybe a little bit of a deja vu when he steps up and sees the batter's eye it's out there in center field. He has a good game tonight. Wouldn't surprise me. Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, Donaldson, Hicks, kind of left with Higashioka. Joey Gallo in the 9th spot has a ton of power. I know he strikes out a ton, but he's always capable of getting into one. He's cheap. DJ LeMahieu. Certainly a stack on the road that you could be looking to for sure. And then that's really about it. I would say stacking the Mets could be viable against Yu Darvish just because Yu Darvish has so much name value. And like I said, like I'm really not interested in Darvish in this spot. I think the Mets probably could get to him. So maybe stack them up. Just get them lower on than you typically would on the road in San Diego. I mean, obviously it's less than ideal. It's strictly an ownership play in case they go off. And then the Dodgers against Kopech. I mean, the Dodgers are always going to be a viable stack. But yeah, I mean, I would say that's pretty much the overall breakdown here. I don't think we missed on anything, so there's a couple good spots in the 6 o'clock games, but those aren't on the slate. So before I let you guys go, I've got to give you my homework call today. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. You can check out the premium content packages, and if you haven't checked out Super Draft, check them out today. Use that promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match on your first $25 deposit. Got to give you my homework call today. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day today is going to be Ronald Acuna taking on Cole Irvin. We had mentioned his hard contact issues against righties. Dreadful numbers across the board. He has fly ball issues. He gives up a 415 slugging, 38.9% fly ball rate, and only strikes out those right-handed hitters at a 15.6% clip. Then when you're breaking down what he goes to, really relying on the fastball, sinker, changeup combination, and Acuna matches all these pitches off. Left-handed pitching against the fastball, a 250 ISO with a 398 WOBA. When he breaks out the changeup, Acuna matches as well, a 462 ISO with a 512 WOBA. And lastly, the sinker, no issues either because he features a 400 ISO, 70% hard contact rate with a 547 WOBA. You're going to have to pay the big price tag to get Acuna in your lineups, but I think he's worth it tonight. You can see him going deep multiple times. If not, I still think he has a massive game at the dish. Get him in your lineups because he is my home run call of the day. So there you have it, guys. Ronald Acuna. Going to have to pay a pretty price tag for him, but I think he's going to be well worth it tonight. Going to have a big game in this spot. Get him in your lineups, and that's all for me in this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell on your way out the door. Wishing you guys all the best of luck on your DraftKings and FanDuel contest tonight, and we will see you in the next one.